Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I understand there's a bill at the desk that is due for a second reading.
The clerk will read the title of the bill for the second time.
S5221, a bill to prohibit the purchase, sale, or exchange of non-public information and for other purposes.
Mr. President, in order to place the bill on the calendar, the provisions of Rule 14, I would object to further proceeding.
Objection having been heard, the bill will be placed on the calendar.
Mr. President, a week or two ago, I came down to the floor and talked about growing up in a small town in South Dakota. And as I said in those remarks, I carry those South Dakotans with me in a special way in my work here in Washington. When I consider bills or look at regulations, I think about what kind of impact they will have on those Americans, or on hardworking people without a lot of extra money in the budget, on people living paycheck to paycheck, or as was the case with some of the farmers I grew up with, harvest to harvest. I think about how to ensure that government isn't standing in their way or taking up all the extra money in their budget. And it was hardworking Americans like the South Dakotans I grew up with who were at the top of my mind when Republicans drafted our landmark tax relief legislation back in 2017. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act cut tax rates across the board, doubled the child tax credit, and nearly doubled the standard deduction. It put more money in hardworking Americans' pockets, money that they were able to use for their particular needs, from child care to home repairs to medical bills to a family vacation. And those same hardworking Americans were our focus last year when we passed the Working Families Tax Cuts. Our first aim with the Working Families Tax Cut was making the 2017 tax relief permanent, and that's exactly what we did. We made the lower tax rates permanent. We made the increased child tax credit permanent. And we made the increased standard deduction permanent. But that was just the beginning. We weren't content with a permanent extension of the 2017 tax relief. We wanted to do more for working families. And so that's what we did. As I said, our 2017 tax relief bill doubled the child tax credit. Well, the Working Families Tax Cuts not only made that permanent, it increased the child tax credit even further and then indexed it to inflation so its value will never go down. I said the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act nearly doubled the standard deduction. Well, the Working Families Tax Cuts boosted the standard deduction even further. And we didn't stop there. We instituted two big new tax relief measures: no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. That meant major new tax relief for a whole host of working Americans: waiters, delivery people, bartenders, Uber and Lyft drivers, nurses, factory workers, paramedics, police officers, and many others. And that still isn't all. We instituted a new $6,000 bonus deduction for seniors. And we created new tax-advantaged investment accounts to help parents save for their children's futures, starting with an initial $1,000 investment from the federal government for babies born between 2025 and 2028. And that's far from the only thing we did to help the next generation get a head start on their American dream. The Working Families Tax Cuts also made some significant improvements to the traditional 529 education savings plan, allowing those savings to be used for a greater variety of education-related expenses, like tutoring or home school materials and vocational and continuing education. On the higher education side, we implemented accountability and reforms that put downward pressure on the cost of college degrees. We also made it permanent, a policy I authored that allows employers, to pay off a portion of their employees' student loans without the employee having to pay taxes on the repayment amount. And on top of all that, we created the Workforce Pell Program, which will provide financial assistance to Americans in shorter-term skills and career training programs, whether they're just starting out or looking to switch careers or develop new skills in their current field. Mr. President, this tax season, more than 35 million seniors claimed the new bonus deduction for older Americans. More than 29 million American workers were able to deduct overtime pay from their taxes, resulting in substantial tax savings. And more than 7.5 million workers deducted their tips on their taxes, ensuring that they were able to keep more of their hard-earned money. And that's not to even mention the countless hardworking Americans who were able to take advantage of the increased standard deduction and the enhanced child tax credit. Tax refunds were up this season, Mr. President, and it's no surprise. It's the working families' tax cuts at work. Mr. President, I may live in Sioux Falls now, which is one of South Dakota's bigger cities, but I spend a lot of time in small-town South Dakota. And whenever I'm there, I'm proud to be able to share the details of the working families' tax cuts and report that Republicans are delivering for working families. And we are going to continue to build on the working families' tax cuts to expand opportunity and make life more affordable for hardworking Americans. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Elsa Brooks.
Leader.
I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Well, Mr. President, Senate Republicans seem to think Todd Blanche became a different person somewhere between confirmation hearing and today's vote. It's obvious he didn't. Blanche remains Trump's personal lawyer. Same client, same corrupt record, same playbook. He's the same guy. Nothing has changed. Thanks to Blanche, Trump and his family still have a permission slip from the IRS to take in tens of millions of dollars through tax fraud. Tens of millions of dollars, and they exempt him from tax fraud, even though he's had so many brushes with the law before. How can we appoint this man to such an important position when he's the one who facilitated the president avoiding any tax liability, which an overwhelming number of Americans despise? It's crazy. It's amazing to how our Republican friends just tie themselves in pretzel knots to do illicit things, to allow Trump to do illicit things, to allow the country's morals to go down the drain when it comes to finance and ethics. And Blanche still hasn't put up any meaningful guardrails to Trump's $2 billion MAGA slush fund. We all know what that was, one of the grossest things any president has ever done. He sues the government as a private citizen, and then as the government for $10 billion, and then shakes hands with the government that he gets $2 billion to do whatever he wants. It makes you nauseous what he's doing to the morals of this country. And let's not forget, Blanche still hasn't released 3 million pages of the Epstein files. Make no mistake, if you had to line up every American, lawyer or not, who should be Attorney General, he'd be at the back of the line because he's so unethical. And ethics matter in this job more than just about any other. So, make no mistake, Blanche still has no business becoming Attorney General. Todd Blanche hasn't changed, and neither should the votes of anyone who planned to oppose his nomination. On the CR, from the start, Senate Democrats said we wanted to keep the government open and keep politics out of the appropriations process. This CR gives us the time we need to continue hashing out a budget that helps make life more affordable for the American people while crushing the chaos, the corruption of the Trump administration. Senate Democrats will always be willing to work across the aisle and negotiate in good faith to deliver results for working Americans. And thanks to Senator Murray's efforts, we've stayed off Trump's efforts to withhold federal grants from vital projects. Trump wanted to pick grants in the states and politicians he liked and eliminate them from others. Nothing could be more against the Constitution, more against the government, more against fairness, more against bipartisanship than that. He wanted to do all that. People were amazed. Oh, I like this project in a red state, go for it. I don't like the very same project paid by the same money in a blue state, cut it out. No rationale, no reason other than political maligness. So people were really revolted by what he was trying to do. Taxpayers fund these grants. Taxpayers deserve to see that the money is invested in their communities, not withheld by Trump because of partisan retribution. Senate Democrats have stood up for working Americans at every step, and we're going to continue to fight for the American people in the appropriations process in the weeks and months ahead. Now on Head Start, Donald Trump believes the federal government exists to serve him and no one else. Even though he acts like a toddler 3/4 of the time, he's not eligible for Head Start. So if the program doesn't benefit him, what does he care? Trump will soon announce plans to gut Head Start without any thought of how it will hurt hundreds of thousands of children. After trying and failing to defund it altogether, Trump is putting the program to the torch by rolling back federal standards and ensure high Head Start be high quality. That means no math or literacy requirements, no health or safety screenings, no guarantee children can access medical and dental services. Trump's changes will hurt America's most vulnerable children and leave their families in the lurch. Donald Trump, the parents of some of these kids are working 2 or 3 jobs, knocking themselves out almost 24/7, just to help their kids by making ends meet. Does Trump really think these families can afford to spend more on finding care for their kids? The gutting of Head Start is the Trump administration's disastrous approach to government laid bare. Better outcomes for Trump, worse outcomes for our kids. That's Trump's America. Donald Trump uses his office to help himself and his billionaire friends get ahead while holding back our children, while holding back our working families. Every single senator who cares about Head Start needs to stand up to this effort that undercuts our children, particularly the most vulnerable. Early education works. It gives kids a head start. It makes America more prosperous as a whole. Trump doesn't give a damn. The reflecting pool. Trump's reflecting pool saga continues to show how his corruption comes back to bite him. Last Friday, Jeanine Pirro, the Fox News host turned U.S. attorney, he loves these television hosts to have places in his administration when they're qualified or not. Look at the attorney, look at the Defense Department. Well, this host was a U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, and she admitted in court that Trump's own grifting caused the reflecting pool renovation to fail. How dare she? How dare she speak the truth against Donald Trump when one of the requirements of being chosen by Trump for any important office is that you just go along with him? I'll tell you this. If we had serious people leading the DOJ and serving as U.S. attorney, we never would have had these nonsense legal cases in the first place. Trump's living in an alternate reality where not even Pirro, an ardent Trump loyalist, will defend his lies. What did Trump expect? Shoddy work is inevitable when you award a multi-million-dollar no-bid contract to your personal pool guy at the taxpayer's expense. Trump's reflection pool debacle is so unbelievably stupid. It would be funny, except we American taxpayers are paying for it. Some nearly face jail time for it. Trump is so delusional, he'd rather prosecute innocent Americans than own up to his own failure. Is it any wonder that 80% of Americans think Trump doesn't have the right priorities? Trump keeps spending his time and American tax dollars on these vanity projects. Donald, Americans want you to lower their costs, end your war, stop your corruption. The reflecting pool can wait. I yield the floor. Note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
Majority Whip.
I'm going to ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be vitiated.
Without objection.
Mr. President, the American people deserve a government that is open and is functioning. The American people know that government shutdowns cause significant pain to them personally and harm to our nation. We've had 2 painful shutdowns in the last year, and the Democrats, and the Democrat leader just left the floor, the Democrats have caused both of them. Democrats have proven that they are willing to make life harder for Americans, and they do it every time they shut down the government. They think it helps them politically. Actually, that's what Senator Schumer had said in the past. Because in October of 2025, Schumer and the Senate Democrats chose to shut down the entire government. We shut down for 43 days. That's a record in the history of our nation. And Senator Schumer actually said at the time, he said, every day gets better for us. I'm not sure who the us was. It's not the American people, not the people who were suffering in the long lines at the airport and with TSA and the flights that were canceled and people that weren't getting paid. Every day got worse for the American people. Might have been better for Senator Schumer, but not for people at home in my state and in yours, Mr. President. It seemed to the Democrats the American families were just collateral damage as they tried to make a political message. Service members were unable to pay their mortgages as they had to wait for their paychecks to come in. Flights canceled, airport screening lines stretched. And remember the video, they stretched for hours. Park rangers, TSA agents all missed paychecks. Democrats said it got better for them every day. Government employees, living paycheck to paycheck, had to struggle to make ends meet, to pay the bills. We saw people lining up at food banks. The American people responded and offered help to their neighbors. The Democrats said it got better for them every day. People on food assistance lost that assistance. And less than 4 months later, the Democrats did it again. That time, they blocked funding for the Department of Homeland Security. That shutdown lasted 75 days for the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats voted to defund American law enforcement agencies. That seems to be their mantra: defund the police, get rid of ICE, get rid of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, open the borders, let anybody in. That's who that party is now, and we're seeing it even today in the Michigan primary, where they have radical, extreme, dangerous, scary people running and who may win primaries and have been winning primaries in the Democrat Party across the country. These are people that put the safety and security of the American people at risk. They do it because it thinks it may give them a political advantage. Doesn't help the American people. Recall that during the last shutdown, the shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security, that we in this country faced terrorist threats. In Texas, there was a man wearing clothing that said, "Property of Allah." He was arrested. He shot into a crowded restaurant. Just shot into the restaurant. People were killed. Property of Allah. Apparently that's okay in some people's minds. Most Americans don't think so. In Michigan, a man whose family member was tied to Hezbollah rammed a truck full of explosives into a synagogue. Over 100 children and their teachers were inside. This is the threat we face. By shutting down the Department of Homeland Security, Democrats put the safety of illegal immigrants above, specifically illegal immigrant criminals, above the safety and security of American citizens. That's who the Democrats choose to prioritize. And we're seeing the Democrats do that in campaign ads and speeches all across the country. As the most radical of the radicals seem to be winning Democrat primaries this year. So the question is, are Democrats going to choose to shut down the government a third time? We were able to get on the bill yesterday. The onus is on them. The Republicans are ready to move forward. You know, we have an appropriations process. It's the way the government funding is supposed to work. Right now, the Democrats are stonewalling every single appropriations committee right here in the United States Senate, and it's shameful. Senator Susan Collins, our colleague and friend from Maine, she's the chair of the Appropriations Committee. She has a history of working in bipartisanship, and integrity is so much a part of her leadership style. Democrats have rejected every good faith measure that she has put forward in terms of the Appropriations Committee. Recall that when the Democrats were in charge of Congress and Joe Biden was in the White House, Senator Schumer blocked 11 of the 12 appropriations bills from even coming to the floor, even coming here for debate. He didn't want any of it. None. Republicans are committed to repairing the damage that has been done to the process by the Democrats. Senator Collins has carefully crafted a reasonable continuing resolution. It's what we voted to get on last night. It keeps the government open. So that was just the first step. Now we have to move forward. We'll see what the Democrats say today. Here's the choice facing every Senate Democrat this week. Vote to keep the government open or force the nation into another painful shutdown? We're going to find out. People have already lived through these 2 painful Democrat shutdowns over the last year. People don't want a third. They've suffered enough. Senator Schumer this morning said he wants to avoid a shutdown. Time for them to prove it. Question is, do Democrats in this body have the courage to stand up to the extremists who have taken over their party? We're going to find out. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor. Suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.